Good evening, everyone. It has been 13 days since Professor Sahay left us without a warning or a sign. And for many of us, his friends, colleagues, students, and especially for his family, Kumkum and Rishabh and Ritvika here, it has been difficult to come to terms with his passing. There has not been a single day that I've not received a phone call or a message about asking about Professor Sahay, seeking answers, wanting to know more about what happened and how he succumbed to COVID. But Disha and I and many of us colleagues were really talking about it as to how we don't want to remember him, like this and reduce his life to the last few days while he was struggling, to fight off COVID. And that is not how we want to remember him. So I, along with my colleague, Dr. Jasmine Damle from the School of Development Studies and Professor Disha Navani, who's the Dean, School of Education, also a junior of Professor Sahay in JNU. We contacted a few people who we knew were very close to Professor Gaurang Sahay and could give us a glimpse of the many facets of his life. And I can see that most of them are here. And I would like to now call upon them to share their memories of him and actually help us remember him for the person that he was, not, and in some way forget those last few days where he was struggling and sedated and where we saw the most sort of, what you call the fragile side of him. We know him as a person who's a full personality, witty, jovial, with a great sense of humor, affectionate friend, colleague, a committed teacher, and a thorough sociologist at that. And that is how we want to remember him. And so I would like the people we contacted, the people who are here, who knew him well, to really share their memories about him so that we can actually cherish those and remember him for what he was as a person when he was living with us. So without really taking more time, I would request Professor Jairam to speak about him. I hope it's okay, Professor Jairam, to start with you.
Thank you, Ritambara, for organizing this meeting. Remember, Gaurang, you see the way we knew him 10 years back, perhaps you see more, because I know him from around 2000 or so. But I never, you see, expected he will come that I participate. Condolence meetings to remember my very young colleagues. Heard, you see, that I am hearing. And sometimes I wonder, somebody believes in God, you see, one could say, why God is keeping us and taking away the younger ones. They are done with. But then we cannot choose, you see, our death or our birth. It is, you see, an accident. How it comes, we do not know. On 13th morning, say, I woke up as usual around 5:15. I woke up, and the first message that I saw was this shocking one. For some 10-15 minutes, I just sat there. Now, I could not even respond. Then my wife asked me if I am all right. Something wrong with you? I said, no, I could not even. Later on, I told, past mobile phone. I had a message from my colleague, Sunil Santa, who had sent. He knew that I was very close to Gaurang. So he sent a message to me and I passed on. It took some time for me, see, to compose myself. And some whom I knew, I sent it, and later on I spoke to Professor Mohanty, you see, in Pondicherry, and one or two others. And of course, all of them, you see, expressed, you see, their grief and concern, you see, for the family he has left, you see. Now, then I think perhaps he was needed the most. But be that as it may, I I would not like to remember the static part of it, but I would like to recollect certain nice things that I knew of Gaurang. Now, I first came to know Gaurang because I started editing sociological bulletin way back in 2000. Uh, sociological bulletin published, I think, perhaps his first major article on caste, class, history, and agriculture. And he was at that time teaching in a college in Uttar Pradesh. I did not know much about history, but I have I had taken it as some sort of a responsibility to groom younger generation of scholars because I knew sooner or later 10 years I had already started counting that we would leave the scene and the younger generation will have to take over. And I saw in him a promising scholar. I before I sent the paper to a reviewer to comment, I myself made some observations and sent it back to him. I said, this is what I see as my first impressions. Because if it goes to a referee, if the referee shoots it down, then I'm not able to help you. So why don't you attend to it? Then it was attended to, and then after 2 rounds, the paper was published. After that, he published quite a few papers in bulletin. Then, when there was an opportunity for him, to move from a Mofussil, college to a university system, that he applied, to this. And the day on which he came for the interview, he came and met me. That was the first time I was meeting him. Very young scholar, and he impressed me very much uh, because he was very straightforward in whatever he said. Uh, there was no mincing. He was a bit critical. Sometimes I thought this may also land him in some trouble because he was so forthright in talking. He did not care who were there. I used to caution, no, just quiet. You should not be talking without knowing who is there, who is not there. But then I appreciated the frankness, and maybe uh, fearlessness. I think I like to say these qualities. And then I wished him all the best. And he was selected, as associate professor, and he came and joined. And once he joined, he was extremely, close to me. And I should say, of the few people who have kept contact with me since I left this in 2015 January, Gaurang is one. And of all my colleagues, he's the one who had the maximum respect for me and also the affection for me. And it is this, which makes me miss him more, than anything else. True, there are many other colleagues. I see several of them here, but Gaurang was, a bit special to me. He was so special that he was so affectionate. He all started taking me, in a way for granted. He would cut jokes. He would pull my legs.
Professor
Professor Jain,
Jairam,
we can't hear you.
muted.
What minute?
The last I met him, was when I came to Mumbai in 2020 January. I think I went to not this. I went to Bombay University to deliver a memorial lecture, and I was pleasantly surprised to see on that afternoon he had taken the trouble to come all the way from TIS. There were only two people from TIS attending that lecture, and he was one of them. And he was telling me, now you come to Bombay and run away without even telling us. Now, next time you come, you should tell us. I will take you home. For I think that means I just missed. I was in a hurry. I was leaving Bombay the same evening, so I missed. And after that, uh, we have been in touch on several things, on matters of sociological bulletin, or Indian sociological society, or this itself. And this is not from some troubled time. He kept me posted with developments happening, unfortunate developments. But I was in touch with this mainly through Gaurang. Now, it so happened 3 weeks back. he asked me, he said that I have written a paper. If you, I would very much appreciate if you read and comment, you see, on that. Then he said, if you don't read and comment, I will not publish it. In a way, that was some sort of a blackmail, you see, involved. I said, yes, I will definitely read, but I will take some time. I will do. But then, it was just, I think, 3 weeks before sad demise, he called me. We were chatting and he was asking me about the situation in Bangalore. Then it started this worsening. He was telling me that I should not step out of the house, how dreaded it is. He, you say, was so concerned about this. I was telling him, you see, Bombay appears to be worse than Bangalore. You should be taking greater care. You don't go out. So that's what. But few days later, a common friend, you see, sent a message. We hear that Gaurang has contracted, and I there was no way of contacting him anyway. But I did not expect that there are several other, you see, people, my friends on the campus, who have contracted COVID and recovered from that. But he was distinctly, you see, that morning, you see, I got this message. Now, I do know, I do know that he had a great capacity to keep many of his problems to himself. I think he never gave that as an excuse. I think in the family front, in the extended family, he has had health issues. In his own family, he has health issues. He would come and discuss sometimes, and in a way, as if I was his elder brother, share, you see, these feelings. And also, if he could not do certain things, now why, you see, it was so. So this, you see, interaction with me is something that has stayed. And when I heard this, I was in a way distraught uh, for almost, you see, a full day. I was not a grip of myself. That was, you see, the situation. But slowly, you see, we start realizing that this is, you see, so. But sometimes, you say, it is so unfortunate that you live long enough to see those who are younger to you, you see, possible. And I don't know how many of you know, this year, the last 5 months, many of you are sociologists. You will be surprised to know that the last 5 months, 27 people, 27 sociologists have passed. Some well known, some not so well known, some, you see, members of the sociological society. This is some sort of a scary situation. And when youngsters, you see, go, then you really, you see, fast. And I should say, Gaurang was at the peak of his career. I think he was left with a 2 year service, and the things that we had discussed, if they had resulted in fusion, we would have seen him, you say, as a star bearer, you say, from TIS as far as sociology is concerned. That is not to be, but I think he has interacted with many of us, and many of us, you say, have uh, very fond memories of interacting, you say, with him, our friendship with him. I think these, you say, will remain in our heart. Perhaps this, you say, is what we will carry till our own. I think that is it. I don't want to say to talk much, but I do recollect two small instances. One, you see, thing, as I told you, is he would talk. For me, it was also a source of information. Because I would not, you see, go and talk to people, but he would talk, and I would, you see, come to know what was that. And very often he would ask me for my comments. That was something that I was very, very careful not to give, because he would want to talk. But then Jairam should not, you see, come in, you see, what he's talking, because it was his talk. But I did not find any malice in his talk. That is remarkable. There are people who speak, but there is malice, but there is no malice. And several days, when I discontinued, you see, the conversation and indicated that I am not ready for that, or I'm done with it, I would say I have to get back now. I'm getting back to see to my quarter. He would walk with me. He says, no, no, it's all right. I will walk with you. Now, I have been sitting in my room for a long time. I will walk with you. But the conversation, you say, will not end until he came home. And sometimes you say, this, what should have ended in the department 1 hour ago, you say, would continue for some more time with a cup of tea. And that was very often in the after evenings, because generally he wanted to avoid the peak hour traffic back home, take a later train. I think at that time, I think like one can also imagine dusk is some time that I have found myself is very lonely, not a congenial time, you see, but perhaps you too felt it good company, you see, to talk to. So that was it. I do remember his uh, concern for me when I had two bouts of illness. I contracted dengue, you see, when I was in Bombay. I also had herpes zoster. On both the occasions. The concern that he had shown, you see, was that of the brother. He always used to say, do you want anything to be brought? Food to be brought from home. But fortunately, there were many others who take care of all that. So I just told him, the very fact that you have come here and cheer me up is something that is very good. So I do have fond memories, though the immediate thing is very sad. I always go back and in my early morning walk. I now think of some of the best things that I have experienced in life. What's the point in talking about the worst things or the bad things? The best things that I have experienced in life. And I count Gaurang as one of the best things that has happened to me when I was in practice. Tambra, thank you for asking me to speak here. I hope I have not taken more time than I
No,
should.
not
Thank
at
you.
all. We were quite immersed listening to you, and it sort of brought back memories of Gaurang sort of coming to our rooms and making it a point to, you know, converse with us and ask us how we were doing. And it was, I mean, particularly, I'm quite confined to my room, and I think it was Gaurang would make that effort to come to the room and talk. And that was that's something I'm going to terribly miss. And I think one doesn't appreciate it when people are around. And now that he's not there, I'll really sort of miss that. Yeah. So thank you so much, Professor Jairam, for making this effort and being here for us. It really means a lot. Can I ask now Professor Avijit Pathak to say a few words, please?
Thank you, Ritambara. It is a strange meeting. I do not know where to begin and what to say. Only thing that I feel I should state at the very beginning that although both of us, me and Gaurang, belong to the academic circuit, but our relationship was something beyond the parameters of academics, worldviews, political ideologies, publications, presentations, seminars, conferences. There was something more in our association and relationship. He was like my younger brother. He was junior to me, and we are also close friends. We cracked jokes, we shared our intense feelings with each other, and most of the time when we met, we talked many things from cinema to politics to poetry to life to human pain and suffering. Seldom did we talk about academics. We talked about the way two friends converse, the way two human souls interact with. So it was not a professional academic relationship, it was something else. And I remember that in 1990, when I joined my university as a faculty, and Gaurang was pursuing his PhD, and he was working with Professor Dipankar Gupta. And I still recall my first meeting. There was in the seminar room, there was student seminar, and Gaurang was presenting something, and Professor Patricia Oberoi was presiding. And as a young faculty, I listened to him, and I was immensely impressed by his presentation. And then we came to the downstairs and the canteen, and we took tea together. And that was the beginning, 1990. Our relationship began to evolve. And then it continued. When I came to teas years back, I met him. He took me to your department, development studies. I came to his office room. And whenever he would come to Delhi, he would make it a point that he come to JNU. And at times he would stay with me, and we would have dinner together, we would talk, discuss, and there would be many stories that we would share with each other. So that was the relation that was the relationship I had with him. And one thing what strikes me, and which I believe is very important to speak on this occasion, that unlike many metropolitan intellectuals who primarily live in the domain of English, Gaurang was strikingly different and qualitatively different uh, because of the way he grew up. From Bihar, Patna to JNU, his studentship, his deep rootedness in rural India, in rural Bihar, and then his academic experiences. On the one hand, a mentor like Professor Dipankar Gupta, and on the other, his association with actually the harsh reality of Indian academics and its hierarchy when he started teaching in a remote unknown college in Uttar Pradesh in UP. His engagement with students there, his constant urge to make a difference, even in that unknown college, encouraging students to teach some good books, giving them some good papers to read, the kind of difficulties that you and I might not have faced when you teach uh, in metropolitan centers, TEAS or JNU, and engage with a kind of students, of a different kind of cultural capital. But that teaching in a college in UP made Gaurang more grounded. And he never forgot his roots, his connectedness with the soil of Bihar, with rural India. And I think that also, that connectedness enriched his academics and his understanding of political sociology of India, his understanding of caste, politics, and other associated issues. So I felt his warmth. And that was the point I was trying to say, that when a relationship transcends the mere parameter of academics and academic professionalism, something extraordinary happens, that we no longer carry a mask or armors. We become very genuine, authentic souls, vulnerable souls, and we began to interact with each other. That happened with me and Gaurang. So I recall this relationship and the warmth of Gaurang with a lot of gratitude. The second thing that comes to my mind, is, and particularly last 1 year, and especially the second wave of the pandemic, the world that we took for granted has completely collapsed and the crumble. The known world no longer exists. And every day you hear some kind of news or other. So one day, before it happened to Gaurang, a student called me and she narrated the horrifying experience of collecting an oxygen cylinder for her COVID infected mother. That evening, I got yet another news. My contemporary, my friend, a great historian at Jamia Millia Islamia, Professor Rizwan Kaiser, is no more. And then the next morning, I got yet another news. Our student, Naresh Kumar, who was teaching at National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, he is no more. One after another, the news was coming, and everything was unsettled. The known world completely crumbled. One evening, I was talking to Disha, and Disha told me that, "Sir, do you know that Gaurang is in the hospital?" And that night, Disha again gave me the message that this is what has happened. So that's the world we are living in. And this world repeatedly reminds us of one harsh truth of human existence. And that harsh truth of human existence is that no matter how, as part of the modern civilization, part of modernity, we feel that we are the masters of the world, we are the conquerors of the world. The pandemic, possibly in a very tragic way, in a paradoxical way, is teaching us again and again about the inherent uncertainty of human existence. Our tomorrow is unknown. There is no tomorrow. But our entire life is centered on a mythical tomorrow. Tomorrow we will achieve success. Tomorrow we'll do something. And this obsession with the tomorrow, which is essentially a myth, that inherent uncertainty of our existence. And at times when life is a picnic party, we are so intoxicated with our productivity, with our efficiency, we seem to forget that inherent uncertainty of existence. And the pandemic, in a very tragic and paradoxical way, is again and again whispering in our ears that life is uncertain. This phenomenal physical existence is uncertain. And it is here one question that keeps confronting me, that when all those was happening, Rijwan left us, Gaurang left us, Naresh left us. And then the question that confronted me, and I think it is confronting all of us, is that how do we live amid this uncertainty? How do we live when there is no certainty of tomorrow? And then I think that one thing comes to our mind, possibly only what is real is this very moment. It is this very moment that is real. There was no yesterday, there is no tomorrow. What remains is the living presence, and that presence is the eternal. That moment is the eternal. And then these days, I often ask myself this question, but do we ever live in the present? Or isn't it the fact that most of the time we destroy this present, either because of the worry of the future or because of the trauma of the past? Now, if my tomorrow is unknown, if I do not know whether tomorrow I will be alive or tomorrow my friend will be alive, why do I destroy today with so much envy, professional rivalry, jealousy, bitterness amongst us? That's a question that often confronts me today. Because ironically, our academic world is also so much filled with bitterness, professional rivalry, envy, jealousy, toxic word, negativity. And I think that it teaches us again and again that if we live this moment, this present, then as the Buddhists are fond of saying, it has to be lived with absolute mindfulness. Because only this moment is available to us. This moment is real. Everything else is illusion. And this moment is the eternal. Now, this is something, that keeps haunting me. And Gaurang's body withering away, passing away, that makes me ask this question and makes me confront this truth of existence more sharply. I can't skip it anymore. That inherent uncertainty of life and the uncertainty of existence. And the third point, that comes to my mind, at this age, you see so many deaths. I recall my very intimate friend, we were together at JNU We grew up together. We were in the same hostel. Then he taught in Bombay St. Xavier's, Bombay University, and came to JNU. Edward Rodriguez, whom we fondly call Eddie. I saw him dying in front of my own eyes. That morning, his sister, elder sister, called me, said that Obijit, please rush and come. And it was the last moment of Eddie. I just saw him leaving us, saw him dying. And I still remember that day in the evening, there was a very important meeting at Jamia Millia Islamia. I was asking myself, should I go there? Should I go there? Because Eddie has just left us. But I don't know. Somehow I felt the living presence of Eddie. I felt the presence of the absence. And I felt Eddie whispering in my ears and asking me that, Obijit, you must go there. You must go there. You just go there. You just go there and then come back. And then come back. You just go there. So experiencing the living presence of the absence. And even today, whenever I come to my classroom, I see Rambabu sitting in the class. One of your colleagues was in teaching. In fact, from Rambabu, I learned the ways of seeing. He was visually impaired, but he saw. He saw so intensely, which even though we have two eyes, we do not see. And the way Rambabu described the life, describe the world, describe his experiences, I could feel Rambabu is asking me to see the world. I have the eyes, but my eyes often do not observe, do not see, do not feel. And Rambabu taught me to see. He did his PhD and MPhil with me, and my association, close association with him, taught me many lessons. So what has happened to Rambabu? What has happened to Eddie? I tend to feel they are the living presence. I experience the presence of the absence. And it is in this context, the day I got the news from Disha, I keep seeing Gaurang and his living presence. 1990 seminar in JNU CSSS seminar room, Patricia presiding, Gaurang speaking. To my last physical face-to-face meeting with him, that was sometime one afternoon in 2018. Gaurang was in Delhi and he came to JNU, and JNU was in turmoil. Students were protesting. There was a systematic attack on public universities. Students were agitating. There was protesting. There was a huge rally going on. And with Gaurang from my residence, we came to Ganga Dhaba. We were taking tea and we were talking about JNU and the different phases of JNU students' politics, from the emergency days to Shaheen Bagh, and then what was happening in the university at that time. Now we're talking and we're having a cup of tea. That was my last meeting, but I didn't know at the time that would be my last meeting. And my last conversation with him, sometime in the month of March, over the telephone, about 35-40 minutes we talked. And that day Gaurang was quite worried because his son is a student of Delhi IIT, who has come to the IIT hostel, come back to the IIT hostel. And Gaurang was asking me that I am worried that there are cases are going up. Now, if anything happens in the IIT hostel, I persuaded him that don't worry so much, so many young students are there, and your son would manage it quite well. Don't worry too much. So we were talking and discussing. That was the last telephonic conversation with him. And today I ask myself, I didn't know that 2018 Ganga Dhaba, my meeting with Gaurang at JNU, that would be my last meeting with him. And 2021 March, the telephonic conversation would be my last conversation. But at that juncture, one thing that comes to my mind is, again, when you see this play of life and death, form and formlessness, then again and again, one conversation comes to my mind. And that conversation was between Gautam Buddha and Ananda. And Gautam Buddha's last days, and Ananda, his close association, the most important disciple of Gautam Buddha, his close and intimate association with Buddha, Ananda was visibly upset and he was crying. And then Buddha was asking him, Ananda, did not you live with me for more than 3 decades? Did not I tell you that all that is temporal, all that is phenomenal is bound to wither away? Buddha is not this body. This body would wither away. But what remains is my association with you. What remains is the spirit of realization, spirit of enlightenment. What remains is the light. That remains. So why did you cry? I think that when we hear this conversation and when we see that our closest friends, our colleagues, our loved ones are dying, their bodies are being reduced into ashes, then the thing that comes to our mind is essentially what dies. And this is where, as a Vietnamese Buddhist monk talks about interbeing and connectedness, where he says that a flower is made of non-flower materials. Flower is made of air. Flower is made of water. Flower is made of soil. And the tiny blue flower, which is giving its fragrance that we see, and then one day this flower would fall, the flower would wither away. And then where does this flower go? It enters the soil and it becomes the monsoon cloud, and it becomes now the rain. And then again, the rain heals the nature, heals the world. So at one level, what remains is only the diversity of forms. The forms keep altering and keep changing. So Gaurang as an embodied form, as a professor of teas, with certain kind of specialization, certain kind of publication, with certain kind of body and the look, that Gaurang has withered away. But what remains and what always remains is the spirit of Gaurang, the light of Gaurang. And that is why I feel often that each time one sees death, the loved one's nearest one dying, one asks a question, can this pain be transformed into a sublime prayer? And I believe that today we are here just to transform this pain into a sublime prayer. And that prayer, and I pray that Gaurang's wife, his two wonderful sons, now they gain that inner strength to experience Gaurang in a different way, not in a physically embedded form, but they experience Gaurang in the book that Gaurang wrote, in the book that Gaurang used to write, in the pen that Gaurang used to use, in Gaurang's life, in Gaurang's life energy. And that is what I say, the living presence of the absence. And our living acquires a new meaning when when you and I experience the presence of the absence. And that living presence of the absence is so deep, is so real. And that, I think, that gives a new meaning to the rhythm of life and death. So I pray and I offer my prayers to all of you, Gaurang's colleagues who are associated with you. Each time, Ritambara, you would pass through Gaurang's room, you would feel his vibrations, and I convey my prayers to Gaurang's family, and let us transform this moment into a moment of prayer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pathak. That was a very moving way to put it, and also extremely spiritual. requires a lot of commitment and, sort of, I think you need to evolve to a point to be able to even grasp the surface of what you've said. And I think it's work in progress for many of us. I think the ability to rise above, mundane material aspects and to relate to, larger spiritual aspects of every person that you engage with. And I think each time one of our, I think the School of Development Studies is somewhere jinxed. We keep losing people. And we lost 2 years back Vineet. And then, of course, at the same time, we had lost Ram Babu. And then now Gaurang. Yesterday, we came to know that one of our secretarial staff lost her mother. And many of us have actually seen a lot of deaths, especially in the School of Development Studies. And I was just thinking about it. And I was thinking, this is exactly, I mean, the only way to make peace is like what you said about, the living presence in the absence. How do you sort of, remember the beautiful aspect of the person and the giving aspect of the person and try to inculcate it in one's own life and maybe rectify one's own course. And I think that's a lifelong struggle for every one of us. And so what you've said is so moving, and I think applies to each one of us who's listening to you. And thank you so much for that. Before I go to Professor B.P. Mahanti, I'm sorry I'm breaking the queue. I had actually organized it in a particular way. There's a student of Sir Gaurang who has to leave for some meeting urgently. So she's made this request that she'll be able to speak before she leaves. So if you don't mind, Professor Mahanti, I'll just ask her to speak and then come back to you. This is
please, no problem. Please.
This is Shreya Sinha. Shreya?
Thank you, Ratambra. And I'm so sorry to have to ask to be, put ahead of the kind of order. So I'm going to be very brief, but I just want to introduce myself. I was a student in MA Development Studies at TIS from 2009 to 2011. And in this time, I had considerable interaction with Professor Gaurang Sahay. And in fact, hearing all of you, I just want to say that since the time that I heard the news of his passing, and I was invited kindly by Ratambra to say something here, I have been trying to remember a particular conversation or story that I could sort of bookmark in my mind. And not least because I think some of these anecdotes can be such an important way of bringing people to life, even if, just for a moment. But strangely and sadly, I really cannot. And perhaps that's because it's actually been a whole decade since I graduated from TIS, and my memory has in fact failed me. But I think what I want to say is that in fact, in the decade since I've been out of TIS, it is really the things that he taught us in those classes on rural sociology and development theory that lie at the core of whatever I have pursued academically and professionally, that I at this point have chosen to make my life's work. And I think that sort of stands testimony to how much I learned from him in my years at TIS. I should also say that I think most people here would be aware of the really harrowing task of asking for letters of recommendations for admissions, for jobs. And I want to say that when I was applying for my PhD applications abroad, I think Professor Sahay, he made it, the whole thing a little bit easier for me, because he just assured me that I could just count on him for anything at all. And he shared so much in my happiness at the success of my applications. And I owe a lot to his generosity and his encouragement, as do many others in this meeting today, I'm sure. I want to extend my really sincerest condolences to his family, his friends, students, colleagues, to everyone in this TIS community. And in this sort of time of unending and profound collective and personal grief, it sort of almost feels impossible to keep up with who and how many we have lost, but also perhaps the ways in which we have lost. And in this, maybe a great privilege of being a scholar and a teacher is that your scholarship sort of lives on through the work of students and peers. And to that extent, I hope and I'm sure that his work and memory will be amongst us for a long time. So thank you so much, Ritamra, for allowing me to speak, and thank you.
No question of allowing. I mean, you're a student, and thank you so much for coming for this meeting and remembering him. And I think as a faculty, as a teacher, all I can say is we live through our students, and 10 years is a long time, and your recollection of him, you're so, you've remembered him so fondly, and that's what matters. His family is here, and it's wonderful to know that students still, cherish him even after long 10 years. They cherish what he taught them and the kind of education that he gave his students. So thank you so much, Shreya, for making this effort and being here. Thank you. So Professor Mahanti, would you like to come in now, please?
Thank you. So I am thankful to Professor Ritambar Hevar and her colleagues at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences for organizing this memorial meeting and giving me an opportunity to share my feelings. In fact, the premature demise of Gaurang Sahay has brought a kind of grief wave across the sociological fraternity in India. It is indeed a huge loss for me on professional as well as personal front. I had over 20 years long an intimate association with him. We often exchange our ideas and share our writings. Our areas of research, lines of thought, ideology, and concern had many commonalities. I feel most intensely the loss of a warm, a genuine and reliable friend. My heart still does not believe that Gaurang is no more. I spoke to him last when he was in Hinduja hospital, and I was also COVID positive before he was reported tested positive. And when he heard that I am COVID positive, every day evening he was making call and inquiring about my health and how I am progressing, how I am recovering, and showing so much of concern. And after I recovered, within few days, I got a message from him that he is COVID positive and he's in the hospital. So immediately I called him, and he, with much difficulty, he spoke to me very few words, very briefly. And that was the last conversation with him. And we messaged through WhatsApp. He saw some of the messages, and after that, his mobile was switched off, and I did not have any other alternative number to know about him. And I was confident that he was being a healthy person, and with all healthy habits, he would recover and he would fight and come back. And it was most disappointing when I got this message on the 12th evening that he's no more. It was the most shocking news for me in my life, actually. So in Gaurang's, I must tell that Gaurang's scholarship and association, both within and outside sociology, has earned him a reputation and sense of appreciation among senior scholars across social sciences disciplines. He left an age when he had much more to contribute. Though he worked on a wide range of development issues in numerous articles, conference papers, book chapters, and book, his scholarship on agrarian and rural studies was particularly influential at a time when rural agrarian issues are at the center stage of development research and policy debates, and when sociologists in India are shying away from rural and agrarian studies. Gaurang's passing away indeed creates a big vacuum. Though he had much work behind him, he showed promise of making even more significant contributions in the years to come. Gaurang's work mainly contributed to three important discourses in the mainstream sociology of India. The first one was on the conceptual discourse on caste, where he contested Dumont's notion of hierarchy and emphasized on difference, and engaged with his supervisor Dipankar Gupta while extending the difference thesis. To him, caste do hierarchize themselves, but each caste has a discrete notion of caste hierarchy. Though he has taken caste as the unit of analysis, he did not view caste as a kind of cultural entity. His focus was more on economic organization of caste, like land ownership, production relations, labor appropriation, etc., and political dimension of caste, like its identity and ideology. Gaurang reinterpreted the concept of dominant caste of M.N. Srinivas. He argued that dominance is constructed through a range of measures, including numerical strength and economic and political power, but it is also contested through caste identities and political mediation. He extended it further by arguing that these dominant castes have control over village level resources, labor hiring, wage payment agreement, informal credit arrangement, etc. Though he did not use the term dominant class, but implicitly his analysis implied that his dominant caste is in fact his dominant class. He also adds that the recent political mobilization among the scheduled caste and the marginalized caste did not pose a challenge to the dominant caste. Secondly, Gaurang's work contributes to the debate on mode of production in Indian agriculture. Based on intensive fieldwork in rural Bihar, he looked into the agrarian economic structure in terms of caste and tried to show how capitalist elements penetrated into rural economy, leading to a rising trend of inequality among various castes in terms of land, use of machinery, and application of advanced agricultural inputs. He looked at the rural class structure within the caste frame. The changes in caste relations and the contours of caste-class interaction in the context of capitalist transition was brought about by his analysis. More recently, he highlighted the declining trend of landlordism in rural Bihar. Lastly, the debate that draws strength from his work is on farmers' mobilization and movements. Contrary to the dominant view that class was the basis for mobilization of farmers in the 1980s, Gaurang explains the relationship between traditional cultural practices and caste and agrarian mobilization with reference to Bharat Kisan Union. He attributes the decline of BKU movement to its entry to electoral politics as argued by Dhanagari and others in the case of Satkar Sangathan movement in Maharashtra. I must say, much of Gaurang's work is not only empirically and theoretically grounded, but also echoes policy concern, particularly his work on rural inequality, marginalization of disadvantaged communities, and rural health services. He was critical of the existing state policies and their impact on farmers and peasants' life and livelihood, and was greatly concerned about the ongoing farmers' movements in India. To him, the new farm laws, in the place of bringing about revolutionary positive changes in agriculture, as proclaimed by the government, would add to the existing problems of agriculture. His commitment to and concern for people on the margins were apparent to everyone he met. Gaurang often shared with me that how the current sociological research in India, instead of focusing on core issues like farmers' movements, labor migration, and rising consumerism that afflicts the large majority of population, shifted its focus to peripheral issues. As a member of editorial board, his inputs were very useful in strengthening our journal, Sociological Bulletin. Precisely, he left behind him an impressive legacy of work, which I am sure will be felt for decades to come. Gaurang commands appreciation as a popular and empathetic teacher. A number of times, he visited Pondicherry University and interacted with our faculty and students. Students and faculty across social science disciplines have fond memories of his lectures on social theory. Gaurang was blunt, as Professor Jairam rightly pointed out. He was very blunt and straightforward, but with a warm sense of humor. Above all, he was always cheerful and always ready to help. Always ready to help. He often tells that मैं तो गांव का आदमी हूँ. Always, wherever he goes, he tells this thing. I don't know all these complexities, and I tell whatever it comes to my mind. I am from a village. I have this rural background. For us who knew him well, these glimpses of Gaurang reminds us of much we have lost, how much we have lost actually. These glimpses of Gaurang actually reminds us how much we have lost. We will all miss him, not only as a sociologist, but also as a friend we love so much. And I take this opportunity to express my deep condolences to Rishabh, to Ritik, and Mrs. Kumkum Sahay, and sincerely pray for their well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. It's so true the way he sort of had a grasp on the rural reality of India and his ability to analyze the intersection of caste and class. And we could never argue with him. Even an informal argument, he would take it quite seriously and come back with arguments to put down whatever one was saying, and one had to completely surrender because he had such command on what he wrote, and his scholarship was phenomenal on that. And it was a matter of pride for us that he was a part of the editorial board in Sociological Bulletin, and his loss will be greatly felt. I would now request Professor Amitesh Mukhopadhyay, please say a few words.
Mute. Can you hear now? Can you
Yes,
hear?
we can. Yes,
Okay.
we can.
Yeah, I thank you, Professor Hebbar, for this email of yours and request. But I wish at the same time that the School of Development Studies didn't have to organize this. I wish you didn't have to send me the request. And I wish I could turn the clock back and had gone back in time to the moment we became friends at JNU. We both came from cities. Here at Gaurang, you could do without the frills of the city, of the metropolis. In our frugal hostel life, I discovered you time and again, your honesty, integrity, and undying perseverance to pursue academics, come what may. We picked up quarrels, indulged in debates, where your eyes were filled with curiosity and looking for an opportunity to catch someone on the wrong foot, but never failed to capture the depth of the social reality that surrounds us. Gaurang, I wish we could go back to our frequented bookshop, Bookworm, in the Connaught Circus, where you bought me the book with your meager senior research fellowship, because I was working on postmodern theories for my MPhil, but I did not have the money to buy the book. Zygmunt Bauman's Intimations of Postmodernity, still lying in my bookshelf. I went back to the book time and again in the past few days, flipped through the pages. Its intimations remain as intimate as they were back in 1992. Gaurang, I wish we could still venture late into the night to Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, to the UGC office, where you were more anxious than I was to see if I had qualified for the UGC Junior Research Fellowship. We didn't know when my anxiety became yours. When I wanted to pay you back for the book, you patted my shoulder saying, live your life frugally, but be extravagant when it comes to academics. Our lives moved on. We left JNU. I wish you called still late at night and asked, "Tum phone uthate kyun nahi ho?" I could say, "Tumhara call tha isliye nahi uthaya." And Gaurang, I wish you texted me saying, "Call me." It's a command, but inflated with honesty and friendship. Together we attended conferences, seminars, yet we never lost the opportunity to find time for ourselves, time that we nurtured together with care and affection. I wish that you called me once again to suggest you come over to Bombay. If you are not feeling well, I'll treat you at some of the hospitals there. I called you when you were in the hospital. You found it extremely difficult to speak. You chose to continue until I hung up. I thought I would call you next day. But the tomorrow never came. For 5 days, I tried calling you. Your phone came switched off. And the day it rang, my face brightened with a hope, but the hope that we all live with. And Gaurang, you asked me to also live with that hope. The world that went with you is, Gaurang, that I lost the time that I carefully nurtured with you. The time that was impervious to the rituals of academic practices, our institutional chores, our academic exchanges and networks. It was you who taught us time and again the value of friendship, the value of being gregarious, the value of being rooted in a social context, yet become cosmopolitan in every sense of the word. You did not need a frills of cosmopolitanism, yet it was cosmopolitanism to the core, and something that would probably be the last flame that I would live with, and we all pray that we live with in times to come, in our handling, in our fighting of the time that we see ahead of us. My sincere prayers for Kumkum Prabhas Bhabi and the two sons, who were very warm and hospitable. And when I went to their place, I was immensely struck and touched by their hospitality. And I wish I could go back to them once again, perhaps with Gaurang's memories and a lot to share with them over a cup of tea or maybe something else. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Amitesh. Very, very moving note. And in fact, it's interesting and it's a very touching story you bring up about he buying you the book with the meager amount that he had. I remember he would, regularly walk into my room and look around the books that be lying on my table and ask me in his characteristic style, "Kya pad rahi ho?" And then I'll just make a face, because that's the routine that he would do. He would come and look at the books that, lying on the table. And then he would look at me with this very naughty smile and say, "Kuch badlega, pad likh ke kuch hoga, likhne se kuch duniya badalne wala hai." So I would just look at him and say, "तो आप क्यों पढ़ते हो? आप तो हर साल छापते हो, इतने अच्छे article छापते हो." And then he would just crack up, laughing loud. And so, when you brought up that episode of how he actually, bought you that book, and how he cherished books and how important it was for him to do his daily routine of reading and writing. He was so meticulous about all that. But he would also laugh about it and tease you. And that's something that I also feel that will be so deeply missed in our school. Yeah. So I can see other friends of Gaurang and juniors. I can see Manish there. I would request some of you to speak up, and I've not listed, but because there are also certain students who've expressed the desire to speak a few words about him, I would open it up to them. If there are others, my own colleagues who are here, would like to say something, it'd be nice. Manish, would you like to say something? Manish Verma, Professor Manish Verma.
Yeah, thanks, Ritambra.
Yeah.
In fact, I had never imagined in my life that this day will also come. And I'll be asked to express my condolence message about Gaurang sir. His untimely departure has left us a void, We are in utter shock and agony. Know what to express, how to reconcile with the, changing situation. Professor Gaurang was my senior in JNU, and our interaction started during my MA days in JNU. We often used to meet in Triple S corridors, in canteens, at Ganga Dhaba, at libraries. and we used to interact with each other. Later on, we moved on to our, respective destinations for our job. But we still used to meet, interact over telephone, and mostly in the conferences of Indian Sociological Society, we used to interact a lot. During my interaction, I always find him very cordial, very humble, very straightforward man, very polite, very gentle, and he never, let me feel that he's my senior. He was always so friendly, always encouraging. Are tum aisa nahi karte ho, tum ye bhi karo, tum wo bhi karo, tumko ye karna hai. And he had, a lot of vision for not only for his future but also my future also. He used to suggest me. I can recall my interaction with Professor Gaurang and Professor Mohanty. We used to sit together at times in the meetings of Indian Sociological Society, and he used to suggest me along with Mohanty that what should I do in future. I think his untimely departure, it is a big loss to the Indian sociology as a person, to me also, because he not only he was my senior, but he was my mentor also, my friend also. The last interaction which I had with him during his visit to Lucknow when his mother was, hospitalized in PGI, and at that time we often met him, and that was the first time when interact with Kumkum Bhabi also. Unfortunately, his mother lost her life, and after that we were on telephonic conversation with each other, and we were expecting to meet in Bombay conference, which unfortunately could not happen due to COVID. And as everybody is recalling, all of a sudden we heard about this untimely demise. It's quite unfortunate, but the kind of person he had, I'm sure that wherever he will be very happy. He must have adjusted to new situation, and he must have attained, moksha. But it is a loss to us. It is a loss to his family also. I pray to God to give strength to the bereaved family to come over such an irreparable loss. And with these words, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Manish. I realized in the past few days how much he is loved, and the kind of wide circle of friends he has. It's phenomenal. And the students, the outpour from students have been phenomenal. And there are many who want to speak here. So I would request them to one by one, come up to speak. I'll ask Dinesh to speak first. He wrote specifically saying he wanted to speak. He's somebody who actually also, right, Dinesh, you were also teaching assistant for him in one of the courses that he was teaching.
Yeah, yes.
So
yes,
he
yes,
interacted quite closely with Professor Sahay. So yeah, Dinesh, tell us.
Thank you for this opportunity. I hope I am audible. So for the last 2 years, I was working with him and Professor Ram Kumar in his concept theory and concept history and theories of development. And I was quite he was always joking that you have so many big professors, Ritambara Hebbar, Ram Kumar, who am I? I'm a common man. He would always tell that, and it's very unfortunate that we are remembering. He would say that nobody will remember, and unfortunate that we are remembering him. And this is then whenever he would always have this irreverence of people, irreverence of ideology, irreverence of, but at the core of his ideas, he was idealistic. He was ideological. He had quite uh, interesting take about society, and very strong conviction of what he was saying. He had an irreverence. He's a very joking. He was joking about it, but he at the core of it, he was very passionate about what he was thinking and about agrarian, about caste, about class, all those ideas. And uh, so whenever so once he asked me, अरे कुछ बच्चों को कुछ पता करो. There is a distance between students and the teachers during this lockdown, in the first wave. He said, बच्चों का कुछ पता करो. So many people are there, and we don't have any avenues to know anybody. So please take care of them. So this is very and after the classes also in the 2019 batch, he would come out of the class. In the class, he would portray as if he's a stolid person. He's he is very composed person. After the class, अरे ओके हो जाएगा, अटेंडेंस हो जाएगा, ऐसा कुछ हुआ है अटेंडेंस का कुछ अटेंडेंस people, it's a method to discipline them, but at the end everything will be fine. So those things he had to portray something, and at the end he has to come out and say no, everything will be all right, everything will be all right. So this kind of so what can I say, thanks for the opportunity. I don't remember so many things that we've been talking for the last 1 year. We've been talking so many times for hours. We'll talk nonsense, and he would hold forth on the nonsense part. So and he was very particular about the health issues also. Once I had some health issues, so he asked me to send him the reports. I sent him the reports, and he particular, अरे ये जो lipid है, all those things, all the reports, he would mention everything, he would know everything. And it is very unfortunate that we are talking about his health issues, like how he passed away because of health issues. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you,
thank you.
Dinesh. Actually, you brought back memories again. And, you know, I remember in the other condolence meeting, Mr. Ramakumar was talking about his provocative style, that, you know, don't get fooled by humility. That was his way of provoking. He would always sort of, you know, put himself down and say, "Arey, main kya hu," and all that. And we know, you know, his scholarship, what it was about. And he would do it on our faces. It was not that he was doing it behind our backs. In front of us, he would do it, and we would have a hearty laugh. You know, then talking about how good each other, you know, praising. I mean, it's like mutual sort of a match of then praising each other that would follow. So that was him. And yes, and the part about the irreverence also, I agree. Irreverence, not just in terms of coming out of class. I know there was a sense of irreverence even towards senior faculty sometime, where he would speak the most awkward truths, while we will be all shut later thinking, my God, only Gaurang could do that. Say a few things which out of politeness, many of us might not say, but he would say it, he would blurt it out. And he, like Professor Jairam said, he was simple, he spoke his mind, he just, you know, opened up. And so there were no two Gaurangs that you need to know. Gaurang was what he appeared to be, and that was the beauty of Gaurang. Yeah, thank you so much, Dinesh. Binita, you want to come in now? Binita is an MA student who actually would have completed an MA dissertation under him. She's worked with him primarily, but he's not there to evaluate it for her. Very tragic. So, yeah, Binita.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Binita is a policewoman, police officer. Yeah, Binita, please introduce yourself before you start, please. She's on COVID duty.
Sorry, I hope I'm audible because we are on
Yes, you are.
COVID duty right now.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vinita Sinha, and I am a student of Professor Gaurang Sahay. So I met Sahay sir in 2018 when I joined us to pursue my master's. And this institution actually is very, very important to me, more so not just because what I learned academically there, but also for the kind of professors I met, for the kind of friends I made there. And Professor Sahay was one of the people who actually made this very, very memorable for me. So he was one of the kindest one of the most humble and very affectionate professor that I've known. Very accommodative, and like everybody has said, he was very outspoken. So in spite of all his oddities and his very peculiar way of talking and saying things, he was just it used to come straight from the heart. And I still remember my first meeting with Sahay sir, which was kind of mischievous, but I would still narrate it because I remember it very vividly. So there was this lecture of his which was happening after a couple of months, because the subject was initially taught by Professor Ramkumar sir, and Sahay sir was taking it after a couple of months. So I was half an hour late for that lecture, and I didn't know how to enter the classroom. So I peeped inside and I saw all my classmates engrossed, taking down notes. So Sahay sir had this unique habit of dictating whatever he used to teach us. So everybody was engrossed writing, and I was very, very late. I also saw, so there was this batchmate of mine, Padmini. So I and Padmini kind of had this competition as to who would come late. So we were usually the latecomers. And then I see Padmini also sitting there. So I was thinking whether I should enter or not. And then I had this idea which one of the seniors had told us about how to get attendance and how to enter late when you are, enter the class when you're late. So I kept my bag outside. I took my water bottle and I simply walked into the class and went and sat on the last bench. So sir noticed, he didn't say anything. So after the class, when I went to meet him, I kind of apologized that I was very late. And he's like, हाँ हम तुमको देखे थे, तुम बिना बैग के घुसी थी और पीछे जाके बैठ गई थी और फोन पे लिख रही थी because you didn't have pen and paper. I was like, I'm really sorry about that. But then it so happened that he became my dissertation guide, and more than the classroom interactions, I really remember going to his cabin and learning all those sociological topics, because I was always this science student and I had no clue about this subject. So, and I was hearing these complex terms for the first time, like proletarianization and latifundia. And so these really used to amuse me. And me and Nilanshu was another student who was working under him. So we used to go to sir's cabin and then sit. So it used to start from those theories and those topics, and it would end up somewhere कि कैसे बिहार में caste system चलता है, to how good the non-veg food is there in Motihari where I am posted right now. So he would tell me कि तुम जब जाओगी posting पे तो हम आएंगे वहाँ पे, and then we would sit and eat and have a good time. So I really wish that sir was there now that I'm posted here. So I really miss him a lot. And the last month I passed out of my academy, the last conversation that I had with sir was while I had contracted COVID and I was really unwell. I was running 100+ temperature, and the next day I had my passing out parade. So he called me and asked me not to, worry about the dissertation submission and all. He's like, हम दिलवा देंगे सब extension तुमको दिलवा देंगे. So और फिर then I told that so he's like, are you resting and also I said कि sir parade है, passing out है, I can't miss this. So I have to do, तो मैं paracetamol खा के I'm doing the parade. He's like कि दिमाग खराब हो गया है तुम लोग सबका, तुम DSP होगी अपने जिला में, मेरे लिए तुम मेरी स्टूडेंट हो, चुपचाप ऑक्सीमीटर लगा के रीडिंग बताओ. So that's what he told me, and he made me take my reading right then and there and tell him. Then he called me twice after that, asking how I was doing. And the next week when I called him, he couldn't take my call. And so when he didn't reply to my message, when he didn't call me back, so I feared this. I got scared if he was doing fine. Then I asked a couple of my batchmates from TIS. They also didn't have any idea. Then I got in touch with Vishra and she told me that sir has been hospitalized. So I somehow gathered the courage to speak to his family, and I just prayed and hoped that he would have survived. That's it.
Thank you, Benita. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Any of the students? Because his family is also here, Kumkum and Ritvik and Rishabh, they're here. And the last time I spoke to them, Ritvik had said that he'd like to say something. So before I go to them, is there anyone else who would want to say something, my colleagues?
Hello, ma'am. It's Divi this side, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. I want to speak something about sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I'm a formal test student, yeah, but when it comes to Gaurang sir, I don't want to tell more about his what he achieved, because we already know that he was a really good professor. But as a person with me and Shreya Dikshit, a different bond with us because he was from Bihar and we both were from UP. So whenever I used to enter in the class, he used to ask me, "Khana kha ke puja karti ho?" So inclined to all those Hindu traditions, and he was so grounded with all the things. And when I fall ill and I wasn't able to give my proposal presentation, then I just called him and just asked him what can be done. And then he tell me that जब स्वस्थ रहोगी तभी तो आगे dissertation लिख पाओगी ना, तो अपना ख्याल रखो. So I will just say he's one of my favorite professors I had throughout my life, from DU in my 5 years of DU life, and then in TASE, and then I'm pursuing my course here in Australia. But when I just heard about him, I just felt someone texted on the MPhil group, and I felt anxiety because I didn't imagine him at this point that I won't be able to meet him ever. And I will say that he was one of a gem kind of person, and I personally am going to really miss him, because the conversation which I used to had with him when I was in TASE, they are really memorable for me, and I will really cherish them for lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Divi. Shashank, you want to say something? Then I think then it's been over an hour.
Actually, online class tha to, sorry, I'm speaking in Hindi, if it's fine. But बहुत एक दूरी थी, but फिर भी ऐसा लगा कि उनको जाना हमने. I mean, he used to speak a lot about us. And sometimes we would be like, "Sir, can you repeat?" And he would be like, "हाँ, तुमको 3 बार बोलना है, 4 बार पूछना है, पूछो." And I would agree with what Vinita ma'am said, that some of us who come from science would get stuck at क्योंकि वो term पहली बार सुनते थे. And in the online class, it's tough to understand those terms. So, and as many others like Professor Mukhopadhyay told about that book incident tells what a rich person he was as a. So, yeah. This hurts even more now too, because most of us of this batch know him from a distance, but today this distance got decreased, and I think we know him much better now, and that's hurts more. और हम भगवान से यही प्रार्थना करते कि वो जहाँ भी है अच्छे हो, और his work will inspire us, that's for sure. बस
Shashank, that's true, so true. Your batch didn't get an opportunity to interact with him in person. And yes, and all those sort of memories have really sort of brought us closer to him. And in the last few days, I've been interacting quite closely with his family, and I wish I knew them even before, we lost Gaurang, and such a wonderful family, and Kumkum and Ritvik and Rishabh, and almost every day I've been speaking with them. And Ritvik the other day told me that he would also like to speak, and I was so elated to hear that. It's very courageous of him to come up at this point of grief and be able to come and say a few words. Yeah, Ritvik, you want to say something, please?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
what can I say about him? Some of you know him. The time you're knowing him spans more than I mean alive. I mean, I'm just 20 years. Some of you know them for more than 20, 25 years. It's it's hard to even say e- e- even say something. I mean, he may not be present here in the material form as someone said, but I believe his soul will be immortal as long as his work will be continued. It will be remembered by his students and other colleagues here in at TIS and JNG and JNU. I mean, I could recall some of his memories I had with him just recently in January and last year. So I was sitting for placements in my college. It was some kind of company campus affair. So I was just on the first day I was rejected by some company, and I was bursting and crying and all of that. So and my father came into my room and said, and he was surprised that I was being crying after being rejected by some company, and said, look, I know that this isn't your first choice, as in I wanted to continue with my physics and continue doing masters and other stuff. So he said, look, so I know this is time of COVID, so people are first looking for jobs or something because they are trying to delay it for 1 year, and said that, but he has saved so much for me. Like he said, and he showed me his mobile and said, तुमको जहाँ जाना है वहाँ जाओ, हम सब इसका इंतजाम कर लिया, हम तुमको चाहते हैं, ये ऐसा ना, ये मतलब I just don't want you to be stuck here, and so you can do whatever you want in academics and stuff. So, and he and the one thing he always joked about it is, मैं अपने दोनों बच्चों को बस बीटेक करते हुए थोड़ा ना देखना चाहता हूँ, मेरा नाम डुबाएंगे ये लोग अगर बस बीटेक करके रह जाएंगे दो इंजीनियर्स मेरे घर में. I mean, one thing I'm sure most of you know that he doesn't care about this wealthy and such material things as in mobiles and wealth and all of these stuff which are present around us. He just wanted to say like कि तुम कितना भी पैसा कमा लो, ये कर लो, लेकिन तुमको कुछ ऐसे यहाँ एक impact बनाना पड़ता है, ये करना पड़ता है. He always used to say this to us, knowing that both of his sons are from the STEM background, and he wanted us to know the impact of social sciences and stuff. So and like so like in my university also, like whenever I'm picking up courses, so I always I always talk to him like, मैं ये course उठाऊं, ये humanities का, should I pick up this philosophy course, should I pick up this because some courses are compulsory for my department for completing my degree, and he would be very happy to recommend me which humanities courses I should pick up. So and I mean, and after that, like after picking up courses like for my last semester in my university in IIT Delhi, so I had a philosophy course. So he used to browse his bookshelf and bring out his old books from JNU, as one of his colleagues were talking about, and he was old shattered books of philosophy and other in areas of consciousness phenomenology, and he used to give it to me, and he used to ask daily kitna padha, and he was very intrigued, like he had a general sense of interest in whenever a STEM student is studying, is gaining awareness in knowing something about other non-STEM related fields, and this used to make him happy considerably a lot more than others believe, I guess. And he also used to cherish and value his students a lot. I mean, I think most of his students will remember as him being much caring, and he wanted his students to be attentive in the class. So one instance which I can remember is, so I have some lectures which started from 8 a.m. in my university. So in the COVID era, so some lectures I don't find it useful and it's not related to what I do. So I just keep it on my phone and just sleep, putting my phone beside it. So so he saw it and said, and he was very fearful कि कहीं मेरे students ये ना करते हो. I can't see them on the Zoom screen, but I fear कि वो लोग भी ऐसा मेरे साथ ना करते हो. I would be very disheartened knowing this if my students are doing this. So I mean, it's very evident that his passion for academics and how much he valued his students was much more evident when I was in fact seeing him teach in the Zoom in the online lectures. So I mean, I shouldn't say much about these things because I'm pretty sure like most of you present here would be knowing how much he was dedicated to his work and field. Other than that, I mean, I think one of you called my father as someone who was fearless, but I'm sorry, but he used to fear, but his fear was medical reports and not something related to fields in academia. He was definitely fearless in those fields, but I mean, let's say for an instance, like he had to he was waiting for a report of some of his family members or friends, so he was very, very fearful about what might come in the report, even though he was suspecting decent chance of it being completely all right, but still he was having a bit of skepticism in his mind, and ki kahan hoga, kya hoga, and he would, and that instance you can see him, my father, in the most religious form, in seeing ki haan kahin report kharab na aa jaye, ye na aa jaye. So it's definitely not true that he was fearless in all those fields, but he was frightened of hospitals, of reports, of these things. And his weakest point is I mean, he was jovial here. He used to like cricket. We used to watch all 5 days of Test cricket against this year against Australia and England. I mean, whatever happens, whatever quarrels or something happens in the one thing everyone, all three of us would sit down and watch in peace and together was cricket, or watching, and even watching football matches late at night. So I mean, those period of time, it was something like all three of us would forget whatever was happening, and we would just sit together and watch stuff. What can I say?
Ritvik, on actually our behalf, all of us colleagues know how much he used to dote on the two of you. I remember Disha narrating this sort of discussion she had, yeah, Disha, where he would very proudly talk about the two of you and say that लोग मुझसे ये नहीं पूछते हैं कि हमारा बेटा पास होगा कि नहीं, वो पूछते हैं कि हाँ याद दिशा,
ये नहीं पूछते कि हमारा बेटा आईआईटी में आएगा कि नहीं, वो बोलते हैं कि ये देखो रैंक कम था होगा उनका. They're very proud of both of you.
Extremely proud and extremely sort of loving, and I think his worry and fear actually was largely for his family. Per se, I think he was quite fearless, but I think he used to really worry about the health of his family, it was quite evident when his brother fell ill, and then your brother fell ill, and then I think your mom got COVID. So I think all of that played a great part in generating that fear in him. I think he just felt there was some ailment or the other that was just visiting the family. And I can see that even in your mother when she speaks as to why this is happening to your family. And I can completely understand that that apprehension, that even after this, I hope nothing bad would happen. She was telling me the other day, and please don't feel that. It's unfortunate that we didn't know you, all three of you. At least I didn't know three of you when Gaurang was alive. But I feel I know all of you quite well now for the past few days that I've interacted, and we are a part of your family now, all of us, each one of us. And I speak on behalf of each and every faculty from my school, and including the ones who are not from my school, like Disha, and people who've been friends with Gaurang, Professor Mahanti, Professor Jairam, all of them. And I just wrote to them once, and they willingly came here to talk about Gaurang, and I think share their grief more than anything else. They're here to share their grief, not really to, praise Gaurang or so anything. I think we are all missing Gaurang terribly, and we are with you in this grief. Please remember that. We are there with you, so never feel lonely. Always, we are a phone call away. When things are better, we'll hopefully also meet all of you. So thank you so much. You made this, this really brave gesture of talking. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't remember when I was asked to speak when my father expired. I didn't have the guts to come up on stage and say anything about him, even though I had lots to say. I mean, even when we know him, I think you know him best. I think because you're a part of him. आप उनके हिस्सा हो. Nobody knows him better than you. And so, like Professor Pathak said, no, he lives within you, and never forget that. And in the values that he's given you, of hard work, of doing whatever you do well, and I'm sure you're going to do extremely well and make him proud. So never forget we are there with you. Yeah. So I don't think I want to continue.
Like to say,
Yeah.
As we all know, in Indian household, father-son relationships are very strange, and me and my brother both had the same relationship with my father, always like opposing each other. But my father gave me I think the most important thing which I have today, to make decisions. He would always allow me to make my own decisions and stand to it. And even though he always said that this would be one of the bad decision, but thankfully the way he nourished me, the way his mindset and everything helped me to understand the world better. Like my brother said that he would take courses in humanities. I will always fight him that ये sociology ये सब पढ़ के क्या होगा, engineering बनो, क्या ये company बनाओ ये सब. And I know that all of you will be hating me, but we will fight. I will fight my father that ये क्या आपका काम से कुछ नहीं होने वाला, थोड़ा सा ये एक ऐप बना दे तो उससे ज्यादा हो जाएगा, सब इंजीनियरिंग ऐसे बोल रहा था मैं. And then he will get angry, we will fight over this, and he will explain what he's doing and I will explain what I'm doing, and at the end of the day we both will not agree that what we each other are doing are not good for the world at the end of the day. But yeah, that was our relationship. Like we will always fight, like in teams also, football teams also. Like I idolized Ronaldo, and he will say Messi and all the time. And so this was the relationship which we had, and I was able to take all those decisions by myself, because I knew that if I do anything wrong, if anything goes wrong, I have my father to take care of me. I knew in the back of my head. And I'm grateful to know that he always loved me and he took care of me, because some of my friends also have lost their father and when talking to them, I realized that they never the love from the love from the father is very minimal. Matlab, in what in the mother, like mother, you can easily say that a mother loves her son or daughter, but the father, the way he shows love is in a different way, and which is very hard to understand. But once you understand, you know that it's there and it's much more than you know. And I'm thankful and grateful to know that I knew I got to see his love, and I was thankful that he took a great care of me. I hope that in future I can take this decision with the decisions the way he did, and he took care of this family. I hope that I can take the responsibility, and I hope that he always watches upon us, and with smile in his face and happiness. I do know that if he's looking at this video, this Zoom session, he must be laughing. अरे क्या बकवास कर रहे हैं सब, जाके अपना सब काम करो. He must be saying that, but I hope that he's happy with us, and I hope that all of you remember him, and all. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Wow. The kind of maturity the two of you have shown right now, and through these days of sort of the pain that you went through, one can see what a father he's been, and his blessings are always there with you. हाँ, वो तो सही बात है. When he'll be watching from above, if there's the Zoom that he could be seeing, he would be saying ये क्या बकवास कर रहे हो. But then he will also come up to our rooms and say कि अच्छा मैं इतना अच्छा हूँ, इतना पसंद हूँ तुमको मैं. He'll also say that, that's his style. So he'll मैं इतना अच्छा हूँ, मुझे पहले क्यों नहीं बताया? Why didn't you tell me? And I wish one could, when that's the tragedy, sort of remembers all good things when a person's gone. Yeah. But thank you so much, Rishabh and Ritvik and Kumkumji, for being here. It means a lot to us at the School of Development Studies. When I invited you, I wasn't even sure that you'd say yes. And when you did, I was totally elated. And so thank you so much. And I think I should end the meeting now. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. And I think what's been shared is a memory for a lifetime. And I think we are going to cherish it at the School of Development Studies, as well as the family, Gaurang's family. And hopefully remember him for these various sort of wonderful things that's been said about him. And he'll always be a part of us. There's no question. I think we are all almost the same generation right now in the school. That's the interesting part of the school now. And so till we retire, he's going to be a part of us. He's going to be part of us even when we sort of post-retirement. I think we'll still be talking about him and remembering him, because I think when someone you're close to or you're meeting on a daily basis dies, a part of you dies too. Although I agree with Professor Pathak that it should be about the living presence, but I think there's something of you that is taken away with this person. And you realize the sort of temporary nature of our engagement, and what remains is what is permanent with us, and all sort of fond memories are there with us, and we hope wherever he is, he's fine. He's, I don't know, in the energy that we have around us, and his looking at us and blessing us too. So thank you so much. I think I'll end the meeting here unless someone else has to say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ritambar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.